Good evening, everyone. Welcome to HappyMeCareer Coaching Initiatives. We are episode 13. And what a year to start and kickstart 2021 with this whole entirely different topic from where we have been talking about in year 2020. And today, we have with us Alexander Trost with us talking about be intentionally different with 2021. Thank you, Alexander, for having you coming on board today.
My pleasure, Mavis, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Now, thank you all for your support and glad you have found value with from our initiatives. I cannot think of better idea than to start 2021, right? No, Happy Me Career Coaching initiatives aims to encourage and evolve change to the masses like you and my mindset, and advocate the use of coaching into your daily lifestyle to help the individual. So, to engage your own willingness and motivations as you develop your career and personal growth. Alexander Trost, today with us, founder of AT Advisor, he coined the term serene leader and created the Light Your Life coaching program. Being a certified coach, trainer, facilitator, and assessor, Alexander has a successful track record in mentoring, coaching, consulting, people development, change program, and more other programs bring along with him so much profound practical experiences. And I can't be so thankful and grateful to Alexander for agreeing, to share with us so much of his insight. Now, after reading Alexander's book on intentionally becoming different, I mean, this, for your information, this whole webinar tonight has didn't intentionally to become his book idea, but it sparks a lot of deliberate thinking in me on how to construct yourself to do things differently. And after reading his book, it leveled up my thinking and performance through his specially crafted coaching questions. Now, Alexander, thank you
Yes.
so much for that book. And I've purchased it, and it turns really a lot of it sparks a lot of insights and questions within myself, especially I do self-coach myself. Now, Alexander, can you share with us, your deep belief in this intentionally becoming different? What is it all about?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Maybe is happy to do so. But first of all, really thanks for having me here on your show. It's a great pleasure and honor. And I also really like what you are doing here with your Happy Me career. I think this is a wonderful initiative and really something we all need now, especially in these rather rough and tough times. And also thanks to all your listeners out there. Yeah, it's rather late already that they really decided to tune in here with us and invest their precious time with us. And I wish everyone really a great and blissful 2021. And may you find fulfillment in whatever you do. And I hope our little webinar today maybe helps you in finding more bliss and fulfillment in whatever you do. So coming back to your question, Mavis, let me go back to one of my maybe most deepest personal beliefs, which is that I strongly believe that humans are generally good, that we generally want to be good, we want to do good, at least within our belief framework, of what we think what is good. We want to be liked, we want to be loved. And most importantly, we also are ready to a certain extent to change if we really think change is needed. Yeah? So far, so good. But what is the problem now? There are actually two negative factors working against us, which we are not maybe fully aware of. And these two negative factors, interestingly, also start with an N. Yeah, so they are nature and nurture. So let me elaborate this a little bit. So let's first look at nature. So for instance, neuroscience suggests that 85 to 95% of our daily life we actually live on a rather subconscious layer. So a lot of the decisions that we are making are automated decisions, or some people are even saying we run through our life on autopilot. We live our life more by default rather than by design. And to add on to that, our mind is wandering around 75% of the time. And you all, dear listeners, might also notice that sometimes somebody says something and this triggers a thought and another thought. And all of a sudden you end somewhere and you think, how the hell did I get here now with that thoughts? Yeah. And last but not least, I mean, there are many more reasons how nature is impacting us, but maybe just to mention a third one is our attention span. And unfortunately, the attention span of humans is constantly declining, especially now with all this technological interference that we have, constantly something rushing and buzzing and ringing. And we are now at a range of seconds with our attention span, and not far away from the one of a goldfish, actually. Yeah. So with all these nature effects, actually, what is happening is that it makes it very difficult from us to really assess who we really became. And this is also why sometimes when we get feedback from people, we get so offended because they are telling something about us and we can't believe it. But maybe that feedback is more true ourselves than how we see ourselves because of all these nature distractions that we have. Yeah? So the other end is the nurturing part, and this starts already in childhood. Yeah, when our parents tell us what to do, what not to do, put so many thoughts and rules and principles into ourselves. And actually, behavior scientists are saying that the first 7 years are maybe the most crucial. So those things that we learn, they might be programmed forever, almost like hardwired and very, very difficult to change. We go then through a machinery called education, which is further molding us, also based on certain standards and things, again, bringing us further away from who we maybe even really wanted to be. And last but not least, society does its rest. Yeah? So I think we become very strongly a mirror of society. And while we as human beings want to be very unique and very special on one hand, on the other hand, we are herding species and we actually want to be, or we need the acceptance of a group. And we do a lot of crazy stunts just to be accepted by people. We might put posts on Facebook just to get some likes. Maybe we might even travel somewhere because all our friends have been there and they are saying, what, you have not been there? And we travel somewhere, or we might even have a profession which our parents told us to do so. So we eventually became someone who is maybe not truly ourselves, number one, and number two, we are not fully aware of. And this is where this whole concept comes from. So intentionally becoming different is not so much only being different for the sake of being different. Also, being different might be also important. Yeah, like Coco Chanel puts it nicely, in order to be never redundant, make sure that you're always different. Yeah. So I think it definitely makes sense to be different from other people, to stick out. Yeah, like also every company has a competitive or a differentiation strategy. So what is your differentiation strategy, how you differ from others? But here it's actually really this process to intentionally become different from whom you became. Yeah. And it took me now a while to get there because I really wanted to explain this. And I think a lot of people never really thought about this. Yeah. Who am I really, or which person did I become? Who did I really become? How did I end up there? And to what extent am I aware of this? And once I became a little bit more aware of myself, of all those things, and was then looking at other people with a little bit more awareness, I realized that unfortunately a lot of people are running through their life on autopilot, are following certain rules or society principles without even realizing it. And I wanted to help those people, and voila, this is where intentionally becoming different came up.
Wow. For the last 10 minutes, you have put in so much insights about transforming from these two of nature to nurture. And you talk about attention span and how it correlates us to educate ourselves, make ourselves more aware. And, with all this essence of intentionally a process of becoming who we are. And many a time society has shaped us to what we want to become. Now, what's the prerequisite, Alexander, that one should have to begin intentionally becoming different?
Yeah, so just now I elaborated the two negative factors, yeah, just to repeat, the nature and the nurture, the two N. So now what is helping us are the two C's, yeah, curiosity and courage. So the prerequisite should really be that we are very curious and very courageous. What it means that we are very curious about ourselves, to really find out the deepest secrets, the deepest thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, and really analyze ourselves with this curiosity, but also with courage, because a lot of the things that we find out, we might not really like. So we generally say the best way to learn is actually through mistakes. And honestly, I also fully believe in that. But what is normally happening when we do a mistake? We find 101 reason to explain why we made that mistakes. We justify it, we shush it away, or name it all. Maximum, maybe we excuse ourselves for it. And what is then again happening on our subconscious level is that we are telling our subconscious mind, actually, it's okay what you did because you have all these reasons. And based on that, we will not change. But we just said that based on mistakes is the best way to change. But our subconsciousness is triggered in a way that the subconsciousness tells us, no, you don't need to change. Yeah. So this is, I think, here the important point, that we are very curious to find out and honest what went maybe wrong or what went different, or where we strayed away from that person that we actually intended to become, and then have the courage to stand up for it and really say, yes, this went wrong, or this one I did wrong, or this one didn't go the right way, and then really do something about it. Because again, we learn best from our mistakes. Or does not even really necessarily have to be a mistake. It can be an experience, it can be a thought, it can be anything. But here are your two prerequisites, yeah, curiosity and courage.
Wow, nice. That two prerequisite, curiosity and courage. Now, before I deep dive inside, everyone out there, if you're listening and if you have questions, please feel free to drop us the questions over at the comment box, and that's when we will moderate the questions along the way or at the end of the session. Now, coming back to Alexander, when you talk about these two prerequisites of being curious and courageous, and you talk about mistakes, right? And I totally resonates that well, because it's a human instincts of a flight or a fight and flight mode that we
Mm-hmm.
always correlates with, right? It's
Yes.
either you flee or you fight with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when it comes to courageous, because we know we can be curious, but do you think that the fear in us, that negative behavior or the negative thoughts in us, can pull us back from being curious and courageous?
Oh, this is a wonderful question. Yeah. I mean, firstly, I would like to rephrase fear. This is something I came across recently, so it's not from me, but I like it because I like these acronyms. Yeah. So fear was seen as a false evidence assumed real. Yeah. And I think once we understand this, that actually no fear is real. Yeah. Also, it rhymes nicely. And we really understand the deeper mindset of that fear, why we have that, and we understand how unrational it actually is. It will open a lot of doors. Yeah. Another sentence I like to say always is that anxiety is a great misuse of imaginations. As human beings, we have this wonderful gift to have imagination, but unfortunately, we use imagination very often to imagine the worst things that can happen, yeah, rather than imagining how things will be once we went through that change, and how things will then be look like. By also better understanding our fears, then I think we can overcome this. And this links to another nice concept, because so many people talk now about growth mindset, and they always tell us how great it is and how much you have to leave your comfort zone in order to achieve that. And here I just want to throw a little bit a different thought at your listeners, because comfort, the word comfort comes from Latin conforte, which actually means with strength. So literally, our comfort zone is not only the zone where we feel comfortable, but we are comfortable in that zone because that's where we are really strong. So my question to the people is always, why do you want to leave that zone and then go somewhere where you are less strong? So for me, the right way is actually expand your comfort zone first before you move on. And some ways to expand that comfort zone is, for instance, to eliminate those unreasonable fears. Yeah, to understand, why do I actually have that fear? Understand the mindset, then understand, eliminate that limiting belief or that mindset, and then automatically that fear or anxiety actually turns into curiosity, because all of a sudden you are excited about that whole thing, and we are back to curiosity. Yeah, and we have changed anxiety into curiosity, and we have expanded our comfort zone, and we can move on more comfortably by still growing. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm against growing. I'm just saying, why should we grow in pain if we can grow comfortably within an expanded comfort zone?
Yes, you're right, Alexander. When it comes to growth, there will always be a form of change. And you are rightfully to mention that no one has yet to mention, I've yet to heard of anyone saying that we can grow without pain, right?
Yeah.
So now all this involves change, where we change back to how, if we eliminate, or if we eliminate fear, we begin to change our mindsets, right? So
Mm.
I do know that to be intentional with all this curiosity, be courageous, and really expand your growth within your comfort zone, it involves change. So what
Mm.
kind of change are we looking at when we intentionally becoming different?
Okay. Wow, another really great question. So also again, let me approach two things. Yeah, I always like just to have two bullets maybe per question, not to overload the people. So one is inside out, and the other one is different. So firstly, I strongly believe this should be an inside out process, change process, which means it really comes from within us. Yeah, when we talk about personal change, it's also very often translated, or a synonym is personal development. But when we look at the word development and what it actually means, this is quite interesting, and maybe quickly to share. Everybody knows an envelope, right? And what are we doing with an envelope? We are folding a letter into an envelope. So an envelope is something where we fold something in, whereas development is the opposite and actually means unfolding. So the real development is actually unfolding what is already in us. And by the way, the word education is not much different from that, because education comes from the Latin word educere, which means to move out. To pull out. So to pull out the best things that are already in us. So both things, development as well as education, that we generally see as we have to learn new things, we have to push as much as things possible into our head. Actually, it's rather the opposite, is that we tap into those talents and that those things that are already all within us and bring them really to a strength. Yeah. And so this is what I see here as one major change concept, is really this inside out change. That's why also the book is not so much about giving people advice, because anyway, I know people don't listen to advice from other people, but it's much more questions. So really asking people sometimes tough, sometimes even nasty questions, but I think very important questions for people to ponder about and really reflect on themselves and then change from inside out. And I believe everyone will then end up in different results. Yeah, not like in a training where everybody again might do the same thing, but really with this inside out process, everybody might come to different solutions. So really make it an inside out change process. The other one, when we talk about change, maybe it gives me the opportunity to also explain the word different. And sorry that I always go back to Latin, but I just find it fascinating to more understand words, and I hope your audience feels likewise. So the word difference actually comes again also from Latin, disferre, which means to carry away. So in order to be different, it literally means to carry away something from something. And coming back to the change that I want to induce, the idea is to really that you have this inside out change process by intentionally carry yourself away from that person you became to really a new person, a person with whom you will be much more in alignment, and with a person you will just feel much more comfortable with it. And I think this constant conflict what many people have with themselves, because they became a person who is not truly themselves and they are not really aware of this, with the conflict with the person they try to be and the conflict of the person they think they are, that this constant conflict is the reason why we actually struggle so much in life. And once we have aligned all those three things, I think we are almost there. Yeah? And many things in life will become much, much easier.
Right. Okay, so we have on the floor, if you don't mind, Alexander. Now, Sasim asks, how much does the significance of the result from the change correlates to intention?
So Sim, that's a great question. Actually, I wanted to come back maybe to that a little bit later, but since you ask it now, it's perfect. We shall address this now. So I have now explained the inside out process part, and I have explained the word different, which is one term from intentionally becoming different. And now you're addressing here the intention. And that's why I'm saying intentionally becoming different. Yeah, it's not just becoming different, it's intentionally becoming different. And yes, you are right, the intention is very, very important, and it's actually all about the intention. That's why I put that word in there. So let me talk a little bit more about the power of the word of intention. And again, it comes from Latin, and there are a lot of sub meanings behind. So by the old Romans, the word intentio was actually used in many different ways. Yeah, and one of them, for instance, is attention. So first of all, if you do something with intention or intentionally, you do it with full attention. But if you remember what I said at the beginning, our attention span is constantly declining. So this is already the first problem that we have if we want to become intentionally different, because our attention span is constantly going down. Secondly, when we do something with intention, we do it with focus. We really focus on this one thing and one thing only at a time. And unfortunately, we live in a time where everybody brags about how great they are in multitasking. But sorry, I have to burst your bubble. Human beings cannot multitask because our brain is a single core processor and we process one thing at a time. And when we say we are multitasking, we are actually switch tasking. And yes, some people are great in switch tasking and they can, like our computer, switch very fast between the tasks. But like your computer, when you have too many applications open, you see that the performance is eventually going down. And the same thing is happening to us when we have too many things in our head or when we try to do too many things at the same time. So when you do something intentional, you really focus on that one thing and that one thing only. So if you want to become intentionally different in one area, you really make this your main focus point. A third important thing when you do something intentionally is that you really do it with drive, or almost with pressure. Yeah. So intendere also means to put something in pressure. So that really a strive and pressure, and that you don't give up so easily. And last but not least, and maybe most importantly, when you do something intentionally, you do it with purpose. Yeah. With a greater meaning. So maybe not only with a meaning for that activity, but also knowing that that activity that you do now with great attention and focus, that it also helps you to a higher purpose. So in my book, I use this metaphor that if our life were a book, our purpose would be the title, and our goals in lives are like the chapter. And many of us, including myself, we are very, very busy writing the chapters from one goal to another, but we don't really have the title. And I think some of you might have realized that all of a sudden you achieve that goal you have worked for so long. Yeah, that project is finally closed. You got this promotion. You have traveled to this amazing thing, or name it all. But then that great aha moment is maybe not there at all, or it lasts very, very short. And why is that so? Because that goal did not really serve you a higher purpose. So once you have this title of your book and this higher purpose, then you can really intentionally align all your goals to that, and everything becomes much more clear. And if you take one thing from this course today, so I would really ask you, when you go back and ask yourself, what is the title of your book? And I hope, Sir Sim, this answered now somehow your question. So yes, there is a very high correlation that you make it very, very clear what is your intention in life, and that you put your full intention on this process of becoming different from whom you became.
Right. Thanks, Alexander. That's a great analogy you have there. It's about the title of the book, right? And every chapters there will also be a subtitles. So subtitles, am I right to actually correct me if I'm wrong? The subtitles, I look at it, are like your intentions. What is your intention for each chapter you're writing?
Exactly. Actually,
Right.
I like your idea of subtitle. Yeah. So how I explained it is that your chapter are your goals, but once you make your goals your subtitle, it's even more great. Yeah, because you can really, for every goal, you can ask yourself, is this a subtitle to my book, and does this make sense now in my book? Because very often we are running after goals which don't really make sense for us, which again, it might be something which is now important for someone else, where we come back to, we became someone who is not really us, and we are doing things which does not really truly reflect ourselves. Yeah. So I like this idea with subtitle. Yeah. So write your title and then write your subtitles and align your goals to your subtitles. And believe me, you will feel much more fulfillment after each goal, because each goal is then one step closer to your title. And by the way, in life we never really arrive. Yeah, so life is a constant journey where there's always something happening, and there's never really an end. Yeah, great. Okay, Sir Sim says thanks. So I think we have covered his questions, or his
Very good.
question. Great, thank you.
Yes. So, Alexander, thanks for sharing that also. We have come from the very beginning where how we've talked about the prerequisites, how your belief in writing this intentionally becoming different, prerequisite of how you want to become intentions. And we explore a little about the intentions and what kind of change are we looking at. Now, from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, Alexander, is that throughout the whole conversations, I can never get off that mind that everything comes with a shift of mindset. It all
Mhm.
happens in the mind,
Yeah.
right? And in your book, sorry, if I were to make some spoilers again. In your book, you've mentioned about hidden mindsets. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious about what is this hidden mindsets you're talking about.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so first of all, I don't think you give any spoilers. I rather hope you give people some appetite to pick up the book. Also, today is really not about promoting my book. I really want to just give people some food for thought here, and I hope it's helpful. Yeah, so hidden mindsets. Yeah, the problem is, again, coming back to what I said earlier. If it's really true that we live 85 to 95% on a subconscious level, which means on a rather unaware level, almost all our mindsets are actually hidden. Yeah, because they are subconscious, and this is one of the things I also really want to highlight. Very often we are not even aware of our mindset shifts. Yeah, so leaders are standing there and saying we have to change our mindset, but we don't even know what was our mindset and to what we really shall change our mindset. And again, this really needs deep reflection and really time with yourself. And this is coming back to this inside out process. So you have to understand this mindset first, change that mindset, and that's then really how you change and become intentionally different. And let me give you one example. Maybe the best example of hidden mindsets is biases. Yeah, because everybody knows about biases, has heard the word bias. And meanwhile, once I read an article, they claimed that we have 180 over biases, yeah, which are now known. And I believe the worst bias is to believe that you don't have any biases. Yeah. And again, coming back to our two enemies, nature and nurture, having biases is totally natural, number one, and many of them have been nurtured. So it's okay to have biases. But the important thing is to be aware of them. And again, not to let them become a person we don't really want to be, because very often we change based on those biases without knowing that. So I think bias is a fantastic field, and I really love it. And maybe just to the benefit of your audience, I would highlight two biases which I find very intriguing, also very common, unfortunately, um, and very, very dangerous, even more, unfortunately. Yeah. So the first one is the confirmation bias, and I think everybody has heard about that, and it's also very self-explaining, but we don't really think about it a lot, yeah? Because what does the confirmation bias actually mean? It means that we accept new knowledge only once we can confirm it with what we know already, yeah, in which is in our subconscious programming. And that is why it's so difficult for us to really learn new things and to change new things, because we don't let the new things in the first place. And by the way, there's a beautiful TED talk, even titled "Why Listening to TED Talks Doesn't Change Your Behavior." Yeah, because also, again, you're just listening to it, you let something in that you can confirm, and it just reconfirms what you know already. And all those other things which maybe might change you, you just bounce it off. That's why, coming back to what we said earlier, development and education, it's not so bad about learning new things, but much more importantly, unlearning first those things that are not suitable anymore, and then relearning accordingly. Yeah, and I think we are always so obsessed with getting a lot of certifications and learning more things, but it does not really help if we are not consciously first unlearning what could be in our way. Maybe, for instance, an example. Yeah, I first learned Italian a little bit, and then Spanish afterwards. But the two languages are pretty similar, and I got always confused. So I literally, to a certain point, had to unlearn Italian or really put this away before I was speaking Spanish. Otherwise, it really didn't. It really didn't work, yeah. Or skiing, when you switch from normal skiing to snowboarding or whatever. Sometimes you have to consciously unlearn how you did skiing before on two skis, because it will be very different from one ski. Yeah, so this is the confirmation bias, which is, as I said, our main obstacle to really learn new things and to really change sustainably. The other one, which is very dangerous for interrelation, is the attribution bias, based on which we give certain attributes to people. So, and I think the attribution bias is maybe best explained by saying that we always judge ourselves based on our always good intentions, yeah, whereby we judge other people based on their always not so good behavior, yeah. And what is happening here now? And this is really very interesting. And once you have understood this, I think you will have much less relational problems, yeah. Because firstly, when we receive feedback, we get the feedback based on our behavior, but we have our intention, our good intention in our head, and that's why we shush that feedback away, because it doesn't match to our intention. But maybe our behavior didn't display our very good intention. Same way, when we judge a person and when we get angry, we only judge their behavior, but we never really go one step further and try to understand their intention behind. And actually, I'm inviting all of you to try to do that. Whenever somebody now, from today on, definitely it will happen tomorrow, says something or does something which is awkward, and normally you would judge it or even go frantic about it, ask the person, what made you do that? And you will be surprised what they are saying, because maybe they had a really great intention behind that. Again, let me give you an example. Let's imagine you're in a team and your team leader is all of a sudden focusing only on one group of the team and spending all his time with the team, and actually even going for lunch. And you are in the other part of the team and you talk with your kakis and colleagues, and you're all saying, what's wrong? That leader likes them much more than us. He buys them lunch, he goes out with them. What did we do wrong? This is very unfair. Yeah, and you could now go all frantic about that and hate that leader for that. And actually, honestly, this is what would normally happen. But if you ask that leader, he might say, hey guys, good that you asked me. Actually, that group of people is far behind performance, and I'm kicking their butt to pick up performance. And just as a small treat, I bring them to lunch sometime. But believe me, I give them a lot of tough messages over lunch as well. Yeah. So actually, it was not that he liked that group more, but actually that group is lower performing, and he wanted to bring them up to perform better. So really be aware of this attribution bias. This is very, very dangerous. This is always happening to us. This mismatch between intention and behavior. And will never be able to fully reflect our intention in our behavior. That's why some leadership courses suggest whatever you do as a leader, first clarify your intention. First say why you are doing what you are doing, because very often you have good intention, but your actions, your behavior, or your words don't really show that.
Right. So that's a very I would say intriguing and very curious about that relationship between intention and behavior, and how you have actually mentioned that hidden mindset is something like a subconscious, and it boils down to one great examples of bias, right? So
Mm,
when you talk about unlearn the things that we've learned, so that we can eliminate that bias within our
mm,
mindsets. And earlier on, you talk about inside out, to know about your self awareness and unfold that
mm,
self, to uncover that mindset. Am I right to explain in this way how you unfold yourself so as to unlearn? And then the question, Alexander, is once you unfold yourself and you unlearn the things you learn,
mm.
can I say, will that bring us to the question of intentionally becoming different?
Um, Yeah, I think that's practically the sequence. Yeah, just that I would actually start with more with the mindset start and the unlearning part. Yeah, that's actually the key point where we are coming from, and this maybe lets me explain the third word from intentionally becoming different. Yeah, I explained now different, which means carrying ourselves away from who we became. I talked lengthily about the intentional part, yeah, with attention, focus, stamina, and higher purpose. And your question nicely leads now to also look at the become part. And as I said, intentionally becoming different is actually a process. Yeah? And the become part, again, I have a model. Yeah, we had now the 2N and the 2Cs and fear and name it all. So I hope it's not too many things. Yeah, but the become part, become is actually the last of 3 Bs. Yeah, so the 3 Bs are believe, behave, become. So,
Mm.
which means, in other words, that based on our beliefs, we behave in a certain way, and based on that, we become a certain person. Yeah, and again, the beliefs are maybe coming again based on the beliefs our parents put into us and our teachers and professors. We are behaving in a certain way, and based on that, we are becoming a person in a certain way. Yeah, and we might not be fully aware of that. So, and by the way, belief and mindset, I would like to use as a synonym. So when we talk also about mindset and biases, this is also all part of your belief system. So if you now want to become intentionally different, we have to go this whole thing backwards, actually. Yeah. So again, let me give you an example. If people say, or a person says, I want to become more healthy. Yeah. So normally what we are doing, we are looking at the behavior part. Yeah. So we are maybe buying this sports equipment and all those things. And I think I have elaborated this um, earlier now already, right? Because there was another question where we brought this back. Um, but we have to really go back to the underlying mindset. So what you said just now is truly correct. So just that we have to walk the whole thing backwards. Yeah. So that we actually start with whatever we want to do. We first ask ourselves, what is our underlying belief? What is the underlying mindset? Which mindset do we have to change? How does this then change our behavior? Which may be backup behavior we might have already in mind. Yeah, so if one behavior doesn't work, we have another one, and then this is eventually who we become. And this whole process is what I call the unfolding. Yeah. So everything is the unfolding. So instead of stuffing something in from outside, what we normally see as development, we turn the development upside down and we make it from inside out, starting with our mindset, with our beliefs, changing our behavior, and then eventually who we become.
Mm. So you've mentioned about that process. Now, I think we have the floor. Sahid actually asking, coming back to your previous one where everybody with a good intention that you mentioned, Alexander. So
Hmm.
Sahid's question is: are we saying that people always have good intentions?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, I strongly believe that people want to be good and want to do good based in their belief system, what they think is good. Yeah. So based on their belief system, yes, everybody has good intentions, but for sure their belief system might not be in line with what we see as good. I mean, good is not an absolute value. Good is very relative. What is good for me is not good for someone else. So that's why it's so important to understand someone's intentions and then trying to understand their belief system. And if I can somehow match their belief system or even adopt to their belief system, or if I say, no, their belief system is just so awkward, so I cannot I identify this with that. Yeah. So maybe now I'm going on a very thin ice, yeah, but I'm still trying to do it, yeah, because currently there is one person who is in everybody's mouth, yeah, which is Donald Trump, yeah, and honestly, I personally think that he really thinks and believes that he is America, that he is making America great again, yeah, and that he does everything with that intention, and I strongly believe that he strongly believes that. Yeah, is his behavior therefore right? No. Yeah. So then we have to further understand his mindset and where his mindset comes from. Yeah, maybe from his difficult upbringing, from the constant competition, from having a tough father, losing the brother at a rather young age. having maybe never real friends, and naming it all, yeah, which formed that system. And then all of a sudden it looks quite different, yeah, to an extent you can almost feel sad for him, yeah, if you really bring it to the extreme now. But so yes, Said, I think your question is really great, and I strongly believe people always have good intentions within their belief system what is good. And it's for us to find out, do we have the same nomenclature or value system for what is good? But normally we are not doing that. We are just shushing a certain behavior away, yeah, or we are lighting a certain behavior. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, you're right. Alexander, I can resonate very well because if we want to be intentionally, then how we aligned ourselves, and you talk about understanding the other party's mindsets and beliefs, and making an alignment to our awareness, right?
Mm.
So, how can we align our thoughts and emotions to re-examine ourselves from a new perspective? Then,
Okay. Interestingly, that you use the word align, yeah, because actually thoughts and emotions are maybe hardly aligned, yeah. But the funny thing is they are all intertangled and intertwined, yeah. And that's why in my book I try to clearly distinguish the two of them and treat thought as one area and treat emotion as another area, and most importantly, treat them both as areas which are not ourself. Yeah, trying to say neither our thoughts nor our emotions are ourself. So therefore, let's start with emotion. And sorry, guys, again, I have to come with Latin, yeah, because the word emotion comes from the Latin word emovere, which means to move out. And I like this a lot because it means whenever we display emotions, we are actually moving out of ourselves and displaying a person who we not really are. Yeah. So yes, here we are saying we are very emotional people, which is true, and a very emotional species. But normally the emotions that we are displaying is not really truly ourselves. Yeah, and so I find that quite intriguing. The second thing is when I bring now one of our enemies, our negative enemies, again into the picture, the nature part. Yeah, nature has built us in a way, and this is what goes back to what you said earlier. Maybe it's this fight and flight syndrome. Maybe nature has build us in a way that our emotional system processes information much faster than our rational system. Yeah, because the fight and flight is emotional. Yeah, and that's why we get so shocked. We see something moving, we think it's a ghost. We see something on the floor, we think it's a snake, and we haven't even processed it. That yeah, only later we look at it. Oh no, it's not a ghost. It's just the wind, or the thing on the floor is just a pipe. Yeah, and that's why it's actually important to disconnect these two. And this is actually very simple, and everybody even knows this. Our grandmothers have taught us that already. Just take a deep breath. And I call this the golden seconds in relationships. Yeah, because what is this deep breath doing? It's again scientifically proven that it's very, very helpful because firstly, by taking that deep breath, you bring a lot of oxygen into your body, which relaxes your body, de-stresses your body, and you feel already much more calmer. And we all do that. We do this before exams or even before the talk or whatever. We take a deep breath and we relax the body. But much more importantly, what has happened, we give our rational system some time to catch up with the emotional system and eventually make a much more rational response. So instead of blowing our head off or saying something that we regret a nanosecond after we did it, we will react much easier. Yeah, and I know this is easier said than done. Because again, the problem is we are wired in that way, yeah, or our brain works that way, and the only way to get out of this is by having this golden second, by taking that deep breath. But believe me, even myself, I still fall into that trap so often. And I believe all your listeners had at least once this face loose experience where we just wanted to hide in a hole somewhere afterwards. So to wrap this now all up and also bring it somehow to your question. So firstly, let's try to dislink emotions and thoughts, especially as a reaction by having this golden second, by having this deep breath. And then the second thing is becoming more aware of your thoughts and your emotions. Again, let's start with emotions first. Maybe just do that small exercise the next time you felt very emotional, yeah, maybe in a meeting or at dinner table with the family or whatever. Really take some people at the side afterwards and ask them honestly, how bad was it? Yeah. And you will be surprised if you have a good trust relationship and people can talk honestly to you, how bad it really was. Yeah, I promise you, your emotional outburst might have been much worse than you thought, because again, we see ourselves much better than we were. Yeah, so try as many opportunities as possible to become more aware of your emotions and get honest feedback. And the next time somebody gives you feedback on your behavior, don't shush it away, but really analyze it. And because maybe your behavior was really as bad as it looked, despite your maybe all best intention that you had. Yeah? And the same goes for the thought. Yeah? As I said, we have actually the highest number I have seen in all the studies. There are huge ranges. The highest number I have seen is up to 60,000 thoughts a day. 60, yeah, 60, which means practically every second we have a thought. And what is even worse is that 95% of those thoughts are the same like yesterday. So we have this recycled thought, yeah. So Buddha calls it that monkey brain, which is constantly working and busy with all kind of things we are fully unaware of, but which are forming us. Yeah, they are forming our behavior and eventually who we become. So we can only intentionally become different if we are more aware of our thoughts. So how can we do that? I mean, that's why a lot of people talk now about mindfulness and meditation and taking breaks, because yes, this can connect us more with our thoughts. But I think it's practical approaches are much better normally. Yeah, because I have even seen people doing half an hour meditation, coming out of the meditation and then yelling at everyone. So maybe one nice exercise could be the next time you meet a stranger, consciously observe what goes through your head, and I believe me, you will be mind blown. Yeah, what will run through your head? You might ask yourself, does that person have a higher position than me? Where does he or she come from? What was that this color look like? Where's the accent from? Instead of just welcoming, hey, great, there is another human being. Yeah, but we don't do that. We don't just welcome another human being, we welcome a person with 101 thoughts. So really try to do this the next one, consciously look or observe your thoughts. Yeah, it's quite crazy.
So what I mean is, Alexander, is to take that I would say intentional steps to transport yourself out and really disconnect, and reconnect your thoughts again, so that you can re-examine the stranger, for example, on another.
Exactly. Yeah. It will, and this comes back now to your question where you said how to gain new perspective, because you might then get a totally new perspective on that person, which you would never have gotten if you let just your monkey brain go loose. Yeah, with all the 101 thoughts, you would have met that person on a totally different level, maybe even prejudged the person based on your biases, and started off on the totally wrong foot, as if you would have just put all these thoughts away. So once we become more aware of these thoughts and emotions, it really opens a lot of new doors, aka new perspectives. Yeah, that we can think at other people differently, also other situations. Yeah, I mean, even this whole pandemic, this COVID thing. So there are 101 things we could discuss here now, how you can look at this more differently. Yeah, and it will change everything. And for sure, most importantly, also how you look at yourself, because once you become aware of these thoughts, and sometimes it's really frightening, and that's where the courage come in again. Yeah, don't give up. Sometimes you might actually even get scared when you see some of the thoughts. And here, maybe also to your listeners, there is something called intrusive thoughts. So sometimes we have thoughts where we really don't know where they come from. Yeah, I mean, sometimes people have thoughts of all of a sudden standing on a bridge or wanting to jump down, and they are zero point 0.0 suicidal. So some people are suggesting this comes from a higher consciousness or conscious level. I mean, there are many theories, but the main thing is we have this sometimes. So don't be discouraged if you have such intrusive thoughts sometimes, thoughts of yourself, or feel bad about yourself. This all happens. So the main thing is don't judge yourself also. Yeah, the main thing is be honest to yourself, be aware of yourself, and be just free of judgment and accept these things as they are. Reflect on them, analyze them, and then take the courage to do something about it if you think something needs to be done. Yeah, maybe you come to the conclusion, okay, I listened to Alexander, I did everything, and I became who I wanted to become, and it's great. Kudos to you. Yeah, fine. But so far I didn't come across to such a person.
Then yeah, that's really true, you know. So like it or not, all these intrusive thoughts that Alexander you have shared with us, it comes to us, and naturally we are all scared. And with all this talking about being different to be is a process, right, of unfolding
Yeah.
ourselves and become
Yes.
very more aware. And I'm always about an advocate of sustainability because, like it or not, okay, like I always say, like it or not, it happens, and it will happen when that intrusive thoughts comes to you.
Mm,
What you said. So, if we want to be intentionally becoming or be intentionally different, you know, from who we became or from
mm,
who is a process of who we want to become. Now,
yeah.
how can we create a sustainable behavior change? Is there a sustainable model that we can derive?
Yeah. Um, yeah, actually, it's a great question because it wraps up everything. So I think once you really remember that sentence intentionally becoming different and you really understand now the meaning of all three things, you will have your sustainability. Yeah. Because firstly, you will have a high attention. Yeah, and it's actually now a nice wrap up where we can recap everything that I said. Yeah, because you will have a high level of attention. You will do something with focus. You will strive for it and not give up early. You will have a purpose for that one thing that you do, but more importantly, you will have a higher purpose, which is everything about intentional. Then you will go through this becoming process where first and foremost, you really analyze your belief system and change this belief system first before you change your behavior in that person you then become. And you truly become different by carrying yourself away from that person you became. Yeah. So I think in a nutshell, the essence of the sustainability, and by the way, the sentence sustainable behavior change, or the fraction of the sentence, comes, I think, at least 10 times in the book, because this is what that book is all about. Because I have seen so many people who have a taught behavior or a coached behavior change, but not a sustainable one. And sustainable only works if you change that underlying belief, if you change that underlying mindset. And this can be that this is a mindset which was formed when you were 5. And as I
Mm.
said earlier, whatever happened until you are 7 is almost impossible to reprogram or to rewire. And that's why it becomes so difficult. So if you want to change something which has been strongly impacted in that time, maybe even through a devastating event, an accident, or something crazy happening, it will be almost impossible, even for the best coach, to change that, because you might always change back into old behavior patterns unless you really finally crack that belief. Yeah, that you really find out that mindset. And by the way, even now, the ICF Coaching Federation, finally, they also brought in coaching for mindset change into their competencies, which I was educating for very long, because I strongly believe it doesn't work if you change your underlying mindset. If you keep your prejudgment about something, your biases, your beliefs, any kind of behavior change will be short-lived. Yeah, because you have to work the become, behave, believe backwards, and change that mindset and find it out first. Yeah, and you will find it out if you are curious and courageous. So
Yes, you have really mentioned and hit the point. And thanks, Alexander, for wrapping us up. We are coming to an end. But just a keynote about, some of the key points that Alexander here in the last 1 hour has shared with us a lot of things about how do you intentionally become different, becoming different, right? So Alexander has rightfully pointed out about awareness and about tackling the underlying mindset, which we call it as hidden mindsets, right? And
mm,
not just being aware yourself or discover who you are that much is about making an effort, I would say,
yes,
an effort, take an extra step, because like what Alexander has pointed out, our brains are already wired. It's not as if we can rewire the brain, but it's been making that effort to come up from where we are and try to look at things in a different angle, right?
Mm.
So today we are coming to an end, and I really thank Alexander for sharing with us so much.
My
So
pleasure.
people out there, listeners out there, thank you so much for your support. And are you ready to embark 2021 differently? How differently or will you want it to be? Since, we are not going to talk about pandemic. If you notice the one whole last 1 hour, we have never talked about what's in the past, but we talk about what we want to become different in 2021. Alexander, once again, I really appreciate, for you. Really appreciate you for sharing so much insights with us to how we can be intentional to create that different self, the different talks. And guys, listeners out there, Alexander's book is available in Amazon too. And I heard before, the show started, Alexander was sharing that it's at Kinokuniya. If
Yeah.
any one of you in Singapore is at Kinokuniya.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. To continue with this, Happy Me Career is setting up a goal setting workshops in the near future. And we look forward to every one of you, in tune with what Happy Me Career is up for. Now, stay tuned as we come back with episode number 14. Alexander, you have brought so much about mindfulness, how we can meditate and all this
Mm.
to become sustainable behaviors change. Now, episode 14 is about coaching with mindfulness. Thank you, everyone, for taking time this evening. And I really appreciate for all of you who have been listening for the last 1 hour. Take care, stay safe.
Yeah.
Good night, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, and thank you so much.